Hey guys, Hades here, and we're on Random 5C right now. This is the third part of Random 5. This one I've divided up into 3 lessons instead of 2. And once again, there is no live version for this one. Okay, what is history? What is a conqueror? What is a quotation or a quote? Do you know any famous historical conquerors? There should be a question mark there. History is a written account of things that have occurred, usually events and people considered to be important to a society. Right? I'm sure you all know what history is. A quotation is the use of someone else's words, either written or spoken, used to prove a point. People often quote famous people because they agree with the quote or they appreciate the person who wrote or said it. In other random things, I have looked at quotes before. A conqueror is a person who gains or attempts to gain control of people or land by the use of military force. Alexander the Great was a famous conqueror, and today we'll actually be looking at him quite a bit. Other famous conquerors in history include Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, Attila the Hun, Charlemagne, Ashoka the Great, and Augustus Caesar. Okay, here's a quotation. Kill one man and you're a murderer. Kill millions and you're a conqueror. Kill them all and you are a god. If you happen to like the band Megadeth, they take this quote and put it in one of their songs. That was from Jean Rostand. Okay, admittedly, a lot of the rest of this lesson after the quotes and vocabulary is going to be about Alexander the Great. Alexander's father was King Philip of Macedon. Philip was a conqueror in his own right and would have played a bigger part in history if not for his demise, his death, and the fact that his son's conquest far overshadowed his own. Here's another quote, right? My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedon is too small for you. That's attributed to King Philip, to Alexander when he was 16. I'm not 100% sure of the accuracy of that, but it's attributed to him. Alexander's teacher was the famous philosopher and biologist Aristotle. Aristotle was the pupil of Plato, and Plato was the pupil of Socrates. So like 4 generations of teacher-student, right? Socrates taught Plato, then Plato taught Aristotle, and Aristotle taught Alexander. So four generations of people teachers teaching famous students. I'm not going to get too much into it. Aristotle was kind of forced to be the teacher of Alexander. Even Alexander's horse was famous. His horse's name was Bucephalus, and it was said that Bucephalus would not let anyone but Alexander ride him. Alexander trained him by himself, and the horse died at the age of 30 while Alexander was campaigning in India. Alexander was the first to unite all of the Greek city-states into one nation, a feat started by his father, but his father didn't finish it quite. And Alexander became the king at the age of 20, and he spent the rest of his life conquering his enemies. Alexander's army was the best in the world at the time, and they continually came up with new strategies for war that were far superior to their enemies. Alexander never lost a battle. Alexander conquered Egypt, Pakistan, most of Persia, and parts of India. And he was also kind to those he conquered. Relatively kind. Maybe not compared to today's standards, but certainly compared to the standards of the day. Uh, but that really helped him. It strengthened his empire, and he received the support of people he conquered because he wasn't overly cruel to them. By the time of his death, Alexander had conquered more than any other person in history. That's today that's not true, but at the time it was. I think Genghis Khan conquered a lot more land than Alexander did. The Roman Empire was bigger, but it was not built by one person. Instead, it was built by the slow conquering of many emperors. Oh yeah, like I just said, the only single person to ever conquer more land than him in history was Genghis Khan. His most famous enemy was King Darius of Persia, who he defeated twice. Alexander could have maybe conquered more, but his troops refused to follow him farther into India. Many of his men had not seen their families in over 10 years, and they were tired of the combat, and they kind of mutinied, and they said, no, we're not going any farther. Alexander died at the age of 33 in Babylon. He reportedly died of fever. However, many believe that he was killed by his closest friends and generals, similar to the way that Julius Caesar died, but it was reported to the world as fever. Still, in history books, it says fever, and those might just be conspiracy theories. Everyone loves them, some conspiracy theories, so let's just say he died of fever, because often people did die of fever in those days. His empire crumbled in a matter of years as his generals had divided it up and couldn't keep control of those lands that Alexander had conquered. And also, a lot of it was they weren't so nice to the people he conquered, right? Alexander, once he conquered people, he accepted them and let them keep their religion, let them keep their lifestyle. And when his generals took over, they started forcing people to accept their way of life and not live their own, and that always has problems. So if you want to conquer people, let them keep some freedoms, or they won't like you. All right, some quotes from Alexander. There is nothing impossible to him who will try. And I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. So that's basically saying a leader has a lot to do with his army. Here's a random image. I thought that looked cool. Okay, guys, this is about the end of this one. Another random image here. All right, anything you'd like me to talk about in future lessons, let me know in the comments, please. We kind of tied this one up quickly, but it was still a little long, so I divided Random 5 into 3 lessons. Again, anything you want me to talk about in the future, put in the comments, and I will do that. Maybe not immediately, but I'll get to it. Okay, thank you so much. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.